Yeah, 92. Antya 7, 92. No, put this one. This is 95. Okay? Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. This morning we are reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's Antya Lila, Chapter 7, entitled Lord Chaitanya Meets Vallabh Bhatta, text 95. Okay. Sankate Padila Pandita Karaye Samshaya Ki Karibena Eko Karite Na Pade Nishchaya Sankale Padila Pandita Karaye Samshaya. Sankale Padila Pandita Karaye Samshaya. Ki Karibena Eko Karite Na Pare Nishchaya. Ki Karibena Eko Karite Na Pare Nishchaya. Sankate Padila Pandita Karaye Samshaya. Ki Karibena Eko Karite Na Pare Nishchaya. Sankate Padila Pandita Karaye Samshaya. Ki karibena eko karite na pare nishchaya. Sankate paddila pandita karaye samshaya. Ki karibena eko karite na pare nishchaya. Mataji's? Fine. Sankate into a dilemma. Padila Pandita, Pandit Gosai fell. Karaye Samshaya, felt doubts. Ki Karibena, what he will do. Eko, alone. Karitena, Parenishchaya, cannot make a decision. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thus Pandit Gosai fell into a dilemma. He was in such doubt that he could not decide alone what to do. Report. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not take Vallabha very seriously. Therefore, Pandit Gosai or Gadadhar Gosai fell into perplexity. What would be his position if he heard Vallabha's explanation of Sri Krishna's name? Certainly, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be displeased. Therefore, Gadadhar Pandit Gosai could not make a decision. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalaka Chakshuram Litam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamni Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is one of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita involving Gadadhar Pandit. And in this particular description, we are hearing about Vallabha, who had come to Jagannath Puri, and he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and proposed his explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam, and within that Krishna's name and many other points. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard that explanation, he was very displeased. And for that reason, nobody else would therefore associate practically with Vallabhata. Neither anyone would want to hear his commentary. And therefore everybody avoided him. But somehow or other, Vallabhata, he maintained some good relationship with Gadadhar Pandit because he knew that this is now his only recluse, his only hope to regain some kind of a respect, some kind of acknowledgement, recognition from everybody else. He thought that this is actually the only way that I can save my life because everybody is ignoring me, everybody is avoiding me. So Gadadhar Pandit, being very compassionate, being very soft by nature, was exposed now to his urging to hear that explanation of Krishna's name, to hear the commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam. But because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't like to hear it, now Gadadhar Pandit felt a great dilemma that what am I supposed to do now? I know that if I please Vallabhata, then I will displease Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So again, having such kind of a very soft, compassionate nature, Vallabhata then somehow forced it upon Gadadhar Pandit to hear that explanation. And this is what we see later on. It will lead Gadadhar Pandit somewhat into a very difficult situation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will become displeased with him. That why did he listen? Why did he listen to such kind of commentary which was not, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it wasn't appropriate commentary. And it wasn't appropriate because it didn't follow the line of disciplic succession. So Gadadhar Pandit, interestingly, later on even, it is described in this very chapter, initiated Vallabhata. That was the great mercy of Gadadhar Pandit. And of course, later on, as a whole chapter of discussion, somehow everything would be reconciled and Gadadhar Pandit and Vallabhata would restore good, at least acceptable kind of image by the mercy of Gadadhar Pandit. Vallabhata would restore his image of a great scholar, of a great Pandit. So Gadadhar Pandit, as we see here in this verse, was explained, he fell into dilemma, he was in such a doubt, he couldn't decide what to do. So somehow it seemed that everything was imposed upon him. But it's not unnatural that he had such a compassion, that he had such mercy, because Gadadhar Pandit is none other than expansion of Srimati Radharani. And she is known as the most compassionate, she is known as the most merciful. So Gadadhar Pandit, it's a very, very mysterious personality, or that kind of expansion of Srimati Radharani, which is not easy to understand. It's not understandable at all practically, unless we of course get some glimpse, we get some mercy, we get some hope of understanding it by the disciplic succession, by our spiritual masters, by our acharyas, through their instructions. Because Gadadhar Pandit appeared to guide Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his pastimes, especially in Sri Jagannath Puri. when Krishna tried to understand what is the position of Srimati Radharani as an object that is relishing a great Krishna prema towards him. And when Krishna tried to understand what is it that she is feeling attracted to, what is it that overwhelms her to such an ecstatic extent, and when he tried to understand also what she feels when she is in relationship to Krishna, what is that ecstasy that she is experiencing, then Krishna was trying to understand what is Srimati Radharani's position. And how is that Krishna is the supreme, absolute personality of Godhead, but there is something that he is not able to understand. It is explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, it is just like the fire which cannot understand its light or its heat. Or it is just like the musk, which also cannot understand its fragrance. It has it, but it cannot understand it. So in the similar way, Krishna was trying to understand the position of Srimati Radharani as the greatest of his devotees, somebody who is performing such an unparalleled, inconceivable devotional service with full surrender, without any reservation, with utmost sacrifice, all for the pleasure of Krishna. So then, as explained, that Krishna pleaded that feeling to relish from Srimati Radharani, but then how could Srimati Radharani bestow that upon Krishna? Because Srimati Radharani was worried that if this becomes the case, then there were two consequences that would happen. One was that she would lose her devotional service, which is the embodiment, she is the essence of Krishna Prema, she is the Hladini, Shakti, internal potency of the Lord, she is the Bhakti Shakti. Then she would lose that service, she would lose that opportunity and that relationship with Krishna. But then another point was also, if Krishna would assume that kind of position, then there wouldn't be Krishna. So there would be no Krishna. So two considerations were there. And for that reason, Radharani was unwilling to share that kind of a position or exchange, well, share, better to say, position with Krishna. But then Krishna, as he does, he withdrew and resorted to another expansion of Srimati Radharani, which is Chandravali, which is by nature very different than Srimati Radharani. She is very submissive, whereas of course Srimati Radharani is a little more fiery, a little more demanding, a little more bossy. So when Krishna met with Chandravali, who was ready to fulfill any kind of desire Krishna had, then in her association, he assumed that nature, or was affected by the nature that Chandravali has, which is that peaceful nature, submissive nature, calm nature. Contemplating then how again he could gain the mercy of Srimati Radharani, gain the mercy of his greatest devotee. And then with such a mood, Krishna searched for Srimati Radharani, and when they met, she understood that Krishna has been with Chandravali because he was exhibiting the same mood. So that mood affected Srimati Radharani, and she considered that Krishna willing and desiring something would please him, because that is the very essence of Radharani's existence, to please Krishna. Please him to such an extent that his ecstasy would increase, and therefore the whole devotional process and relationship between them would increase. So for that reason, somehow she, again, feeling compassionate, feeling merciful, feeling that desire to again please Krishna, agreed to share that Krishna prema that she has with Krishna. Yeah. So Krishna has Radha Bhav, but he doesn't have that Krishna prema. No. So this is something that Krishna wanted to understand, what it is. He could understand it, we may say theoretically, but from practical point of view, it's not easy to feel that feeling. Just like we may understand composition of some substance, color, density, so many different ingredients that they might be present. Usually may give the example of a honey. But the taste, like Srila Prabhupada very often, he gives the example, if we want to understand Srimad Bhagavad-gita, we have to open, we have to read, we have to apply. So if we would want to understand the taste of honey, then we have to open the bottle and taste it. So it's not just sufficient to have some kind of intellectual understanding. So for Krishna to feel, not to just understand, but to feel what Srimati Radharani feels in relationship to him, he begged Radharani for the very same. So it is described that in the pastime of Imlital, which is a place in Vrindavan, almost on the bank of Yamuna, a little bit before, if one starts from Madan Mohan temple and goes towards the Keshigat, at that place, Krishna assumed that form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu feeling great separation from the gopis, or being in the mood of the gopis feeling great separation from Krishna. So this is why we see that Gadadhar Pandit, although there was his attempt to follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Vrindavan, but he never came to Vrindavan. He never came to Vrindavan. Of course, like several others of very close associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he pointed out that wherever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, that is Vrindavan. No? There is no reason for him to go to Vrindavan, because wherever he is, that is Vrindavan. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to go to Vrindavan, then Gadadhar Pandit was ready to renounce his vow of Kshetra Sannyas, to practically in such a way break the religious principle, because he couldn't bear separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He couldn't bear separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was eternally, practically, of course he is eternally, but it was constantly, even in this pastime, he was constantly associating with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were inseparable. since childhood. There is, it is said, maybe 1 or a few years difference. Gadadhar Pandit appeared after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they lived very close. But nowadays it's known as Shrivas Sangam. Two other little small temples nearby, Advaitacharyas and Gadadhar Pandit, marking the spots of places where their houses used to be. So they were constantly enjoying each other's association, playing together, and studying under the same teacher. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, we know, was a great logician, and he would always try to argue. He would present different logical principles and wrangle the philosophy, which Gadadhar Pandit wouldn't appreciate at all. He didn't like any of this. It's just considered this is a waste of time, dealing with such kind of mundane subjects. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would forcefully drag him into that kind of discussion or association wherein he would be discussing such kind of subjects. But Gadadhar Pandit wasn't pleased with it at all. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, felt it. And then he declared that actually one day I will become such a devotee, my dear Gadadhar, that even the great Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva will, come at my door. And this is, of course, what had happened later on when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned from Gaya. So they were constantly associating with each other. They were always inseparable. And even when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes exhibit certain qualities or certain little more aggressive nature, Gadadhar Pandit would be always there to calm him down. So this is why Sachimata was very pleased that Gadadhar is always by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's side, balancing kind of his nature. So when later on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and he went to Jagannath Puri, none of the other devotees from Bengal came to reside at Jagannath Puri except practically Gadadhar Pandit. Everybody else left behind, and they were coming once a year for a few months for Jagannath Ratha Yatra festival. But Gadadhar Pandit was given a place to reside next to, and where is now a Tota Gopinath temple, and he take this Kshetra Sannyas vow to worship the deity there, to worship Tota Gopinath, and never to leave Jagannath Puri. Because of course we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Jagannath Puri for so many years practically. All the time, because he gave a promise to his mother that he will reside there so that she can receive the news from the devotees about his activities, about him every year when they would return from Jagannath Puri. So Gadadhar Pandit was steadily worshipping the deity, but then at one point Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to go to Vrindavan and leave the Jagannath Puri. And Gadadhar Pandit's affection and attachment for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so enormous, it was so great, that he just couldn't even bear the thought that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is leaving now. Because it's not just going to Vrindavan, that would meant years. It's not just like nowadays and do it in a few days or something. That would mean years. It meant a long time, a lot of travel. And Gadadhar Pandit therefore just followed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped him saying that, what are you doing? You're breaking your vow, you're leaving Jagannath Puri. You're supposed to remain here. And then Gadadhar Pandit replied that better, better to go to hellish planetary systems practically than be or remain without your association. So he was very disturbed. And he said, if you don't allow me to go with you, then I will go separately. So I won't travel with you, I will go separately. And he was very, very adamant because of his love towards Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his affection. As we said, they were always practically inseparable. And after some time, when they both arrived till the Mahanadi river at the Katak, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, hearing that Gadadhar has also reached, then he called him. He called him. And of course, internally he was very pleased, but externally he was very upset. He was portraying the very angry mood. That, my dear Gadadhar, why have you left your service? Why have you broken your vow of Kshetra Sannyas? And it appears that actually you have done this just because of sense gratification, your sense gratification. Therefore, you're breaking two religious principles. You're acting on the level of sense gratification, and then you're breaking this vow of Kshetra Sannyas. And nobody will appreciate this, and people will blame me for that. So, but Gadadhar Pandit didn't mind. He said that it's like he said, better, it doesn't matter, let me go to hell or whatever it is, let everything, nothing is important but your association. So then was described that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited enormous affection towards Gadadhar Pandit. And as in the pastime of Mahabharata, when Krishna was forced to break his vow, so in the similar way, break his vow when Bhishma was fighting, because Krishna gave the vow never to take any weapon in the battle of Kurukshetra. But then Bhishma also gave a vow to kill all the Pandavas. And then he made a vow that he will make Krishna fight. So then, to protect the vow of his devotee, then Krishna resorted to the broken wheel which he used as a chakra. So just to protect the vow of Bhishma Dev. So in the similar way, just to protect the vow of Gadadhar Pandit, then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited enormous tolerance and affection in such a way towards Gadadhar Pandit to bear that separation from him, because he also felt very, very bound by Gadadhar's love. So just to protect his vow and somehow to tolerate that affection that he had towards Gadadhar, meaning that separation or idea of being also separated from him, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested him, or practically ordered him to return back to Jagannath Puri, because he had practically broken that vow. He had already left sufficiently away from Jagannath Puri, and therefore his vow was broken. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered him to return back and assume his service of Tota Gopinath, which of course, even when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu later on in Jagannath Puri, when he left this visible manifestation visible to us, to other devotees, he said that he entered into the deity of Tota Gopinath. And then Tota Gopinath was still worshipped for some years by Gadadhar Pandit, but he felt again such a separation. He felt it so difficult to perform his duties because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not present. So that even at some point, the deity had to sit so that Gadadhar, aging practically so rapidly because of that separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he couldn't place the garland around his neck. So then also it is said that Gadadhar Pandit disappeared at that very place at the age of 48. So Gadadhar Pandit had such a unique position, and he has such a unique position, that when Krishna, as we described, wanted to taste Srimati Radharani's position, that whatever it's left from Srimati Radharani in terms of her qualities, but not having the opportunity to render service to Krishna, then this is what Gadadhar Pandit is. So of course, what does it mean when we don't have an opportunity to render devotional service? That's a very unfortunate position. It's a very unfortunate position. And then, in one sense, if we look at it, but from another point of view, if we understand position of Sri Gadadhar Pandit, then there is hope. There is a hope. Because Gadadhar Pandit then, he acted very, very submissively. That's why it is said that he is in one text of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is explained, also just in Kavi Karnapur's Gunadesha Dipika, he is, yes, the expansion of Srimati Radharani, but he is also, there is a tinge of qualities or manifestation of Lalita Devi and also of Rukmini Devi. Because Rukmini, she is expansion of Chandravali as the queen in Dwarka, but then that nature of submissiveness, calmness, which Gadadhar had, nature to be reclusive, nature to be renounced, nature to be calm, peaceful. So that nature, that comes from Chandravali, through Rukmini. So that's what Gadadhar displayed, this kind of nature. So when we kind of lose our service to Krishna, then what can we do? We can create a rebellion, we can try to do this, we can try to do that, but that's not what it's exemplified by Gadadhar Pandit, because that would lead to some kind of other manifestation. He exhibited that very peaceful, very calm, submissive nature. And through this, then he rendered different type of service. Different type of service, which is assisting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to understand and to relish, again, what Srimati Radharani is relishing. To act practically like a gopi, rendering service unto Krishna. So this is very unique position of Gadadhar Pandit. He had displayed such kind of qualities to assist Krishna, to guide Krishna, to also, as we mentioned, balance or pacify Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes when he would exhibit different kind of little more extreme symptoms or moods or ecstasies. So Gadadhar Pandit was always next to him, always there to relieve him from any kind of excessive display of certain qualities or activities that would direct him towards that mood and feeling that Srimati Radharani has towards Krishna. So it's a very, very unique position that Gadadhar Pandit has. I won't say assume, but say Srimati Radharani would assume, but that he has. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very appreciative because then he was able to relish that taste, and he was exhibiting, as we know, especially at the end of his pastimes, which are described in Antya Lila. He was able to exhibit those symptoms of Krishna prema, because he himself, as Krishna, we know he could not understand what that Krishna prema is. Yeah. And this is towards what Gadadhar Pandit was guiding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And for that reason also, not just Gadadhar Pandit had that affection towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had that very, very deep bond and affection towards Sri Gadadhar Pandit. And in Jagannath Puri, Gadadhar Pandit, he was also Pandit. The word itself means he was acting as a great scholar. And who else again but Srimati Radharani? You know, he was teaching, or he was understanding or making others understand what is the real meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why here, of course, everybody would come, just like we know, there was so many devotees would come and learn from Gadadhar Pandit about Srimad Bhagavatam, gain different, deeper meanings of Srimad Bhagavat Purana. And he had quite a number of prominent disciples. One of them was Achyutananda, son of Advaitacharya, and several others, one also being Bhugarbha Goswami, who established Radha Gokulananda temple in Vrindavan, and we know there is his samadhi at Radha Damodar, was a close associate of Lokanath Goswami. So he was teaching everybody Srimad Bhagavatam. And I think even, who was it that came from Vrindavan? Srinivasacharya. He was trying to get association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he had gone. Was trying to get association of Gadadhar Pandit and learn Srimad Bhagavatam from him, and he had gone. He was also in great distress at that time. So Gadadhar Pandit was known for his scholarship. And here we see now, he was forced to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam from Vallabha, which was not in the line that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was appreciating. As we know, sometimes Swarup Damodar was his secretary, he would hear whatever anybody wanted to present to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to ascertain whether that is correct or not, whether that is appropriate philosophical presentation, or it's maybe some kind of rasa basa, or maybe something even worse, offensive. So at that point, as we said here, what we're hearing, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wouldn't hear anything that Vallabha wanted to present, but then Gadadhar Pandit, he was forced, somehow he was forced. But he knew the real essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And as we said later on, throughout this 7th chapter, somehow everything was reconciled, again, by the mercy of a devotee, by the mercy of Gadadhar Pandit. Vallabha also restored his position as a great Pandit. Hare Krishna. Any comments or questions? Okay, so on this day, which is very auspicious day, may pray to Sri Gadadhar Pandit to bestow upon us the mercy so that we may advance in spiritual life by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.